glue goes back too, right? So why? The answer is this, if I think this is what you're asking.
How would that affect us?
How would that affect us now? On the George Norrie show, Mike Sala has talked about this person called Dan Burish. There are a lot of people here who have known about it. My friends know about it. But this is what Michael Sala has talked about. When I was developing material by this person, George Hoover of the Navy, who was an ONI, who was their guy on time travel, their guy on what they believed happened in the Philadelphia experiment. Real guy. He was Walt Disney's advisor on the Man in Space series back in the 1950s. What he said to me when he gave me notes, and I mean we were doing book together when he died, he said that the secret, it's not the UFOs. Everybody knew about the UFOs and the ETs. That's why I was saying yesterday, when you talk about disclosure, the anomaly of that is that there really isn't any disclosure because you're disclosing something you already know about. So when Steve stands up and talks about this collective denial of the government, it's the purpose of the government to aggregate power in itself, not to disseminate power to the people. And that's how it was in 1791 at the Constitutional Convention, but that's also how it is now. So when the Republic becomes a national security state, you want to aggregate more power and disseminate less power. Hence, if there is something that everybody has, like free energy, remote viewing, time travel, of course you don't want to let that get out because the people who support the government want that for itself, right? So that's what George Hoover said, was that everybody who was involved in those experiments knew about UFOs. The Army, the Navy, everybody, okay? That's not what they were worried about. Because you could see the UFOs. I mean, they're over Washington. It's 1952. Where's the cover-up? It's on TV, right? Colonel Blanchard tells Walter Howe to release the story to the newspaper. Where's the cover-up? Stan Friedman is right. Stan said there never was a cover-up. Afterward, they tried to change it, but not at first. He's dead right. The point is, it's like disclosing that chair. It's here. Nobody will admit the chair is there, hence the denial. So the government was saying, we all know UFOs. What was the big secret? The big secret was time travel. They don't want you traveling in time. You know, I mean, it's 1957. Your father gives you, you're 13 years old. Here's, son, here's a Fairlane 500 convertible with the T-Bird engine. Go rev it up on Route 66, and there you go. I mean, you're going to do more damage. So at a certain point, time travel ain't the greatest thing for people to go bouncing around the universe about. But what Hoover said is they did. Who's they? The theys from our future. They did. They came back. And when you intersect with a timeline, you change the timeline. That's like a kind of a macro version of the Heisenberg uncertainty theory. Your very presence affects it. That supposedly is the big secret. It ain't the UFOs, it's the time travel, and the guys with the big eyes or the this or the that, whatever, they are us. And so therefore, if somehow we can go forward, we can go into their time, maybe there can be a reconciliation among the times. Maybe. And then I promise you.
Well, Mr. Corso seems to dwell in a very positive world. But to me,
Okay, as you speak, I'm going to translate. Phil Corso lives, he said, in a very positive world. Paradox is an evil.
But to me, there's a paradox between his craft and the beings that were in the craft.
Yet the craft itself and the beings that were in the craft are a paradox.
The Greys that were in the craft have a very bad reputation.
The Greys have a very bad reputation.
He also seemed to say that this craft needed to be propelled with love and full.
And you should all subscribe to UFO Magazine. Oh, I'm sorry. And the craft seemed to be propelled with love.
I haven't been convinced at all that
Okay. And you're not convinced that the grays are full of love. Okay. And you're not either. Okay. And neither is a lot of people. Which is why, okay. Now,
So there's a paradox for me.
okay. I think I'm not I think what's going on is that for Phil Jr., a paradox is somehow inherently evil, bad, okay? Because it's a clash of things. But if you don't define a paradox as essentially bad, let's say that you're saying a paradox is simply different things exist at the same time that kind of deny each other's existence, or the logic of one refutes the logic of the other. So you're going back to the past and meeting your mother is paradoxical, because really the question is, how could you go back before you were born to meet your mother before you were conceived, right? That's the nature of a paradox. If that's not evil, if you call it something else, then yeah, paradoxes can exist. Okay? So that the fact that a ship from the future can enter our own time and interact with us is paradoxical in as much as it theoretically doesn't exist yet on the timeline that we are on. But what if there's no such thing as a past and present and future, and the only reason we define them as such is that we don't see beyond our own dimensions? There was a book called Flatland, a very famous science fiction book, in which a spheroid, a three-dimensional, or a cube, a three-dimensional object, intersects with a two-dimensional universe. And all the entities in the two-dimensional universe can't conceive of the object beyond the two dimensions that it sees. Similarly, you cannot conceive, because you live on this timeline, on this plane, in this universe, of something from another universe coming in, whereas if you were beyond this plane, on another plane, you can conceive of past and present and future. Since Phil is talking about religion, one of my great paradoxes is this, and maybe this will answer your question. When God says to Moses, you are going to go to Pharaoh, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart. Remember, that's in Exodus. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh will not listen to you. And hence, I will visit upon Pharaoh a number of plagues, the last of which will be the death of every firstborn in the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh will let you go. And you shall despoil the Egyptians. So you get a bad reputation for this. And you shall despoil the Egyptians, and you shall be let go. Well, God is explaining to Moses something that Moses really, as a human being, has trouble grasping, which is, if God knows that Pharaoh's heart will be hard, and if God knows that Moses will go back again and again and again, and he'll go and when he goes at that time, Pharaoh will say to his taskmasters, don't give the Hebrews the straw to make their bricks. So he's sending Moses to Pharaoh to get a harder time. So Edward G. Robinson can say, so Moses, and that's the whole point about why it makes no sense if you're reading, but you're reading it from the point of view of our own limited existence. And so the Rebbe say that if you look at this from beyond our timeline, beyond our existence, there is no paradox in Moses going to Pharaoh and getting shot down again and again and again until this devastation happens. Hence, from your perspective, it makes no sense for our craft to go back to the future, because there is a future for our craft to go back to, and for it to come here because there is a past.